Hey, Bastish B here for 64K and welcome to another episode of Pop Culture Quick Bytes. And welcome back. So on today's episode we're going to have a look at the latest Sid Effects album, Sids and Sorcery. So if you're unfamiliar with the Sid Effects albums, this is the fourth release. As the name suggests, it's called Sids and Sorcery after the Commodore 64 sound chip, the Sid chip, which produces the excellent music that the system is basically known for. So this is a collection of 30 Sid tracks from classic Commodore 64 RPGs and fantasy games. Okay, so this is much more than a simple collection of Sid tracks. Let's find out who makes the Sid albums and how he puts them together. Chris Whillock is the man behind the 4 Sid Effects releases so far. Chris got his first C64 in 1986, which he bought off a friend, and one of his favorite games as a kid was Rambo First Blood Part 2. The first Sid track he heard that absolutely blew him away was Crazy Comets by Rob Hubbard, and he considers this and The Wastelands from The Last Ninja by Ben Daglish to be his all-time favorites. Chris's love of C64 music eventually led him to release his first Sid Effects album in 2018. These albums are all released through C64Audio.com, which is run by Chris Abbott, whose contributions to keeping the C64 Sid music alive over the years is epic. Chris befriended Abbott on Facebook and sent him some of his stereo recordings, which he was very impressed with. Chris Abbott then asked him to record all of Rob Hubbard's C64 tracks for the massive C64 audio endeavor, Project Hubbard, which was a very successful Kickstarter. So how does Chris get his sound? Let's take a look at his rig, and he has a brief description of how he does it. He uses a 1988 PAL Commodore 64 with a Sid Effects dual Sid board. The board has 2 sockets on it, a 6581 in the left and an A8580R5 on the right. The board has a stereo output, giving him 6 channels of sound, 3 on each side. Using the differences between the 2 chips creates the crisp stereo sound. All the music is played directly on a C64C with Sid Play and recorded on a Windows 10 PC in FLAC format using Audacity. The sound is normalized, but no altering of the actual Sid music is done. Burning these to CD or listening to them on your computer, these tracks just sound absolutely awesome, and all his albums are available for free, including the latest one on C64Audio.com, as well as having the CD artwork for you to print out just like this copy I made. The downloads are available in MP3 and FLAC format. Also, if you live in the UK, be sure to also check out the upcoming 8-Bit Symphony, the live concert of C64 Sid music being put on by C64 Audio. It should be a blast. Okay, so let's take a quick little look at the actual physical copy itself. So this is what it looks like if you print it out and put it into a CD case. Sids and Sorcery, Sid Effects 4. As you can see here, they've got a massive selection of awesome game soundtracks. You got 15 on each. If you burn it to CD, there'll be 15 tracks on each CD. Brilliant selection. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a quick run through of all the tracks on this album, all 30 of them. We'll play about 10 seconds of each one and show a little bit of gameplay footage so you know what games it comes from, and also give you a good feeling of the whole album. on the Sid Effects albums. Bear in mind, I'm a long-time Commodore 64 owner since about 1985. First time I ever heard one of these Sid Effects albums, I actually thought it was a remix album. I was listening to it and I was really enjoying it. I thought it was excellent, but I thought it was a remix album, and bear in mind I've listened to these tracks a million times. After a while I realized that these weren't remix albums. This is actually Sid music directly from the C64. It's just the fact that it's being recorded at such high quality. I've never heard it sound so good, especially if you burn it to a CD or listen to your computer on the FLAC format. I kind of heard things in songs which I'd kind of just never picked up before, which is kind of amazing. The fact that I actually thought they were remix albums using modern instruments was crazy, especially in the beginning. After listening to like a bunch of tracks, I kind of realized that no, this sounds exactly like the original. It's just, it's so rich. The sound is so rich. Sound editing as well is also excellent. Some of these games have really short pieces of music and they have obviously multiple tracks, and Chris has kind of compiled some of these into medleys and they kind of flow perfectly. It almost feels like you're just listening to one big epic track, but in fact it's made up of like a whole bunch of tracks from the game. It's done really well, and I know from doing audio editing, which I suck at, is that audio editing is really difficult and it's really meticulous, and you got to just get it right, otherwise it just doesn't work, and these work extremely well. Overall, this album is excellent. I would highly recommend it to any Commodore 64 Sid enthusiast or person that just loves Commodore 64 music in general, even video game music in general. I think Chris did an excellent job. Also want to thank Chris for providing me with a lot of information for this video that made it possible. Bear in mind, these are labors of love by him. He's not getting paid for any of this. These albums are free as mentioned earlier, so please check them out. Not only this latest release, but you should also check out the previous ones. They're all well worth a listen. And that's it from me, Vastish B at 64K. I hope you had a good time. If you can like and subscribe, that'll be greatly appreciated, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!